Let's dive into the discussions shaping the nation.
Deputies, I want to thank you for the opportunity to have this important debate in Dáil Éireann today as we mark the 3rd anniversary of Russia's unprovoked, illegal, full-scale invasion of Ukraine. We're at a critical moment in terms of the trajectory of Russia's war in Ukraine. How Europe and how the international community responds will have far-reaching consequences for Ukraine, for European security, for international law, and for the future of a multilateral rules-based order. This week, 3 years ago, Russia launched an unprovoked and unjustified all-out aerial, sea and land invasion of its peaceful neighbour. Since then, indescribable suffering has been inflicted upon the people of Ukraine. Millions have been forced to flee their homeland. Millions more are internally displaced. Hundreds of thousands have been killed, with thousands more, including children, forcibly removed, tortured or arbitrarily imprisoned by Russian forces. Despite recent Russian rhetoric ostensibly seeking peace, the facts speak for themselves. Russian forces continue their offensive along the front line, seeking additional territorial gains, while Russia's relentless aerial bombardment on Ukrainian cities and civilian infrastructure continues unabated. Talking peace, practicing war. On Sunday evening, on the eve of the 3rd anniversary, Russia launched its largest overnight drone attack against Ukraine since the beginning of the invasion. Russia's aerial bombardments are indiscriminate and they do not distinguish between military targets and civilian infrastructure. Their sole objective is to impose terror, inflict suffering and to break the spirit of the Ukrainian people. Let me state clearly, these are not the actions of a country seeking peace. The European Union has been steadfast in its solidarity with Ukraine since the first day of this terrible war. This solidarity was reaffirmed in the clearest manner this week. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, and the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, were in Kyiv on Monday, joined by a large number of European commissioners, including our former colleague Michael McGrath, and by leaders of many countries. Our Taoiseach joined by video link a summit of world leaders convened by President Zelensky in Kyiv. In his remarks, the Taoiseach was clear in stating that in this dark moment, Europe needs to step up. We must say more, we must do more, and we must spend more to ensure that Ukraine gets the support it needs now to defend its territory and to enter negotiations from a position of strength. If we do not do this, then we will surely pay a much higher price down the line. The EU's continuing commitment to Ukraine was also a key issue at the Foreign Affairs Council, which I attended in Brussels on Monday. This was an important moment for the European Union to reiterate our commitment to stay the course in support of Ukraine. At this meeting, I reaffirmed Ireland's steadfast commitment to Ukraine. Ireland and our European partners have been clear. There can be nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. Equally, there should be nothing about Europe without Europe. I've also discussed with my EU colleagues how Europe can step up its support for Ukraine at this critical time. Work will continue ahead of a special European Council that has been called on the 6th of March to further discuss the European response. The House will be aware that recent developments in Washington and the resumption of political contacts between the United States and Russia have indicated shifting US policies and priorities. I believe in the importance of maintaining a strong EU-US relationship. We welcome the commitment of the United States to support the achievement of peace for Ukraine. We all want to see an end to this conflict and peace in Ukraine, but how we make peace matters. We must aspire to a comprehensive, a just and a lasting peace, a peace that respects Ukraine's sovereignty, territorial integrity and the principles of the UN Charter and international law. Ukraine must be central to any process and it must determine the timing and the terms of any agreement. These principles guide Ireland and the EU's approach on this key issue of fundamental importance for us all. We will engage with our American friends to make these points, but we will reiterate that a bad deal for Ukraine is a bad deal for all of us. The House will be aware of the important debates at the United Nations on Monday. Minister O'Callaghan was present in New York to restate Ireland's ongoing commitment to supporting Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. The UN General Assembly voted in significant numbers in favour of a resolution setting out these fundamental principles. It calls for a just, a comprehensive and a lasting peace in Ukraine, one based on the principles of the UN Charter and international law. Ireland, along with an overwhelming majority of EU member states, was proud to co-sponsor and vote in favour of this Ukrainian-led resolution. The House will be aware that the General Assembly also adopted by the same margin a resolution put forward by the United States, but one that included crucial amendments supported by Ireland and our European partners. Ceann Comhairle, Ireland has been steadfast in its support for Ukraine since day one of Russia's war. Since February 2022, Ireland has committed over €380 million in political, humanitarian, economic and non-lethal military support to Ukraine. Civilians continue to bear the brunt of Russia's illegal war of aggression. Russia's full-scale invasion triggered the largest displacement crisis in Europe in decades, with millions displaced and in need of continued life-saving support. Access to the most basic needs, including water, shelter and protection services, continue to be extremely challenging for many. During my visit to Kyiv in September, I witnessed the brutal consequences of Russia's full-scale invasion firsthand. Whilst there, I stood side by side with President Zelensky and signed a comprehensive bilateral agreement on support and cooperation between Ireland and Ukraine. Ireland has also responded by welcoming Ukrainians displaced by the invasion to our own country. Since February 2022, over 110,000 Ukrainians forced to leave their homeland have sought sanctuary in Ireland. Many of them remain, and so many of them have integrated well into Irish society and are contributing to our culture and indeed to our local economies. I've no doubt in time that they will play a crucial role in rebuilding their own country when it is once again safe to do so. It is clear that what Ukraine needs right now is military support as it exercises its legitimate right to self-defence. Through the Department of Defence, we have provided direct military support in kind. That includes 10 tonnes of meals, 200 units of body armour, 2 minefields, 30 Defence Forces vehicles, satellite communication systems, Reacher robots, giraffe radars, as well as €2 million to the ICT coalition we have joined with our European partners. Defence Forces personnel have also provided training support to 762 members of the Ukrainian armed forces. Ireland has to date committed approximately €250 million in non-lethal military assistance for Ukraine under the European Peace Facility. At EU level, the release of the majority of this funding is currently blocked. One priority must be ensuring that Ukraine gets this support quickly so it can defend its territory and enter negotiations from a position of strength. I will bring proposals to government which will enable us to provide €50 million in non-lethal military support to Ukraine as quickly and efficiently as possible. Discussions are ongoing at an EU level on a further package of military support for Ukraine, and Ireland is engaging actively in these discussions in keeping with the government's established policy. We need also to recall the challenge that the current situation poses for European security and defence. In the wake of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, all EU member states have examined and re-examined their foreign security and defence policies. This is also the case for Ireland. Our commitment to a values-based foreign policy, to multilateralism, and to a policy of military neutrality does not insulate us from the impacts of a rapidly changing and volatile international security environment that has become the new reality across Europe. We recognise the very real sense of threat felt by many of our fellow member states. This was clear from my meetings at the Munich Security Conference earlier this month. We must respond to that. It's our duty and our obligation to take our own security and our responsibility towards our like-minded partners more seriously than ever. Like Russia's actions have undermined the foundations of the international rules-based system on which the United Nations is based. The principle that borders cannot be changed by force protects us all, and yet a permanent member of the Security Council has cast that vital principle aside. This should concern us all. It must surely not be rewarded. During our term on the Security Council, Ireland delivered consistent, principled and powerful criticism of Russia's war in defence of the UN Charter and the people of Ukraine. We have supported all 8 General Assembly resolutions in response to the Russian invasion of Ukraine, including successful action to exclude Russia from the Human Rights Council. At the Council of Europe, Ireland has been a founding member of the Register of Damage and is actively participating in negotiations to establish a claims commission for Ukraine. Nuclear safety and security must apply in all circumstances, including an armed conflict. Ireland condemns Russia's continued illegal occupation of a nuclear power plant. Only 2 weeks ago, a highly explosive drone struck the protective confinement shell of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The consequences of a nuclear incident, whether by accident or by design, are unfathomable. Over the past 3 years, we have heard horrific reports of the gross and systemic violation of human rights by Russia. Strikes on civilian infrastructure, strikes on hospitals, cynical so-called double-tap strikes that are designed to hit life-saving first responders. Bucha, Kharkiv, Mariupol. These place names have become etched in our collective consciousness. That is why we must work to hold those responsible to account, including those responsible for effectively abducting and kidnapping the children of Ukraine. One of Russia's most brutal and egregious crimes is that large-scale forcible transfer of Ukrainian children from their homes. Imagine taking people's children from them and offering them up for forced adoption. This may well amount to a war crime. Ireland will continue to engage with international partners to promote accountability for Ukraine and for its people. The International Criminal Court has now issued arrest warrants for 6 senior Russian suspects, including Putin. Ireland is a member of the core group of states that have recently made important strides towards establishing a special tribunal on the crime of aggression. In response to Russia's illegal aggression, the European Union has adopted unprecedented sanctions. We must continue to exert maximum pressure on Russia and limit its ability to wage its war of aggression against Ukraine. A broad range of sectoral sanctions have been put in place, including measures targeting Russia's military, technology, transport and energy sectors. I welcomed the adoption of the 16th package of measures by our Foreign Affairs Council on Monday. Together, these measures are having an impact. They're making it harder for Russia to access battlefield goods and indeed to generate revenue to pay for their illegal war. The decision by the European Council to open accession negotiations with Ukraine offers the prospect of a brighter future for the Ukrainian people. In many ways, it is part of a security guarantee. Ukraine belongs in the European Union. Ukraine is part of the European family. We believe that ultimately that greatest security guarantee we can offer now to Ukraine is membership of the European Union, remembering the European Union is the greatest peace project that the world has ever known. We'll continue to advocate at a EU level for progress on Ukraine's EU accession path. And we hope that agreement can quickly be found to open negotiations on the first cluster of chapters. We must say we've been really impressed by the reforms that Ukraine has undertaken to date whilst in the middle of a war, and are committed to working with our Ukrainian partners in the years ahead as they progress along their European path, including in the context of our upcoming presidency of the European Council next year. As we look to Ukraine's European future, Ireland's also engaged in discussions at EU level around short-term recovery efforts and preparations for a successful longer-term reconstruction effort. Ireland joined EU, G7 and international partners in supporting the joint declaration of support for recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine last September. This declaration reaffirms our strong commitment to helping Ukraine meet its urgent short-term financing needs and to supporting its long-term recovery and reconstruction. Ireland is supporting life-saving and protective measures for women, for children and for those displaced by conflict by working to repurpose damaged buildings for social housing use and to provide housing repair solutions to vulnerable war-affected populations. In addition, I'm pleased to tell the House that Ireland has established bilateral cooperation with Lithuania and the European Commission on the construction of school bomb shelters in Ukraine. Russia's war represents not only a challenge for Europe, it is a war that is having global impacts. It has compounded an already fragile global food security situation with major implications for food and agriculture commodity prices. Russia continues to weaponize hunger by targeting Ukraine's grain and port infrastructure and disrupting supplies. Russia's war has had a significant impact on global energy prices. I commend Ukraine's initiative to ensure global food supplies despite attempts by the Russian Federation to weaponize food and to undermine our global food security. As a long-standing champion of global efforts to reduce hunger and starvation, Ireland is committed to ensuring access to nutritious food as we work to tackle ongoing instability and economic and environmental challenges. As we mark this grim milestone, we also recall on the 3rd anniversary with admiration that Ukrainians continue to demonstrate outstanding courage, resolve and determination. Today, Dáil Éireann should honour their heroic efforts, their efforts to defend their country and the fundamental freedoms that we in Ireland and people right across Europe hold dear. The basic right of all people to live peacefully within their own borders without fear of being attacked. While the current challenges may seem insurmountable, we must not falter in our resolve. We must stay true to our values, to our beliefs, to our support for Ukraine. We must stand in solidarity with Ukraine. We recognise that our continued support for Ukraine is a necessity, not a choice. That's why Ireland stands with Ukraine now and in the future. Slava Ukraini.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.